October 1st, 1992. Mann's Chinese Theater, Hollywood. The Unforgiven premiere was in full swing with over 300 reporters, photographers, and television crews documenting what was being called the most important Western in decades. Clint Eastwood was in the middle of a live interview with Entertainment Tonight discussing his Oscar hopes and career achievements when he suddenly stopped mid-sentence, looked past the cameras toward the street, and said 5 words that would shock everyone present: "Excuse me, I'll be back." What happened next would become one of the most powerful displays of character in Hollywood history, as America's most legendary tough guy chose humanity over publicity and reminded an entire industry what real strength actually looks like. The event that changed everything was unfolding about 50 yards from the red carpet, where 67-year-old Michael Thompson, a homeless Vietnam veteran, was being roughly escorted away from the theater area by private security guards. "Sir, you need to move along," one guard was saying. "This is a private event. You can't be here." Michael, who was wearing a faded army jacket with Vietnam service patches, tried to explain that he wasn't causing trouble. "I'm not bothering anyone. I was just watching from across the street. I served with guys who worked on Western films after the war." "I don't care what you did before," the guard replied. "Right now you're trespassing, and if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll have LAPD remove you." "Please, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to see Clint Eastwood. He's always been respectful to veterans in his movies." That's when the situation escalated. "Look, buddy, this is Hollywood, not a homeless shelter. These people paid thousands of dollars to be here. You don't belong." The guard grabbed Michael's arm and began pulling him toward the street, despite the veteran's compliance and respectful demeanor. "I understand. I'll go. You don't need to push me." But the guards continued their rough treatment, apparently more concerned with removing what they saw as an unsightly presence than with treating a human being with dignity. That's when Clint Eastwood appeared. He had walked away from live television cameras, abandoned interviews with major entertainment journalists, and left hundreds of Hollywood's most powerful people waiting while he crossed the street to address what was happening to Michael Thompson. "Gentlemen," Clint said quietly, his presence immediately commanding attention from everyone in the area, "what seems to be the problem here?" The security guards, recognizing the star of the evening, immediately changed their tone. "Mr. Eastwood, we're just removing this individual from the theater area. He doesn't have credentials for the event." Clint looked at Michael Thompson, taking in the Vietnam service patches, the dignity with which the older man was handling his mistreatment, and the obvious respect the veteran was showing despite being humiliated. "What's your name, sir?" Clint asked Michael. "Michael Thompson, Mr. Eastwood. I served in Vietnam 1st Infantry Division." "Thank you for your service, Michael. What brings you here tonight?" "I was just watching from across the street. I've always admired your films, especially how you portray military characters with respect. I wasn't causing any trouble." Clint turned to face the security guards, and his expression had changed completely. This man served his country in Vietnam. He's standing peacefully on a public sidewalk, bothering no one, showing respect for everyone around him, and you're treating him like a criminal. "Mr. Eastwood, we have orders to keep the area clear of unauthorized individuals." "Unauthorized. This is America. He has as much right to be on that sidewalk as anyone else." What Clint did next stunned everyone watching. "Michael, would you like to be my guest at the premiere tonight?" Michael's eyes widened. "Mr. Eastwood, I couldn't. I'm not dressed appropriately." "You're dressed like a man who served his country with honor. That's the most appropriate clothing anyone could wear." Clint turned back to the security guards with the authority that had made him legendary. "Gentlemen, Mr. Thompson is now my personal guest. If you have any problem with that, you can discuss it with me directly." The guards, realizing they had made a serious mistake, quickly backed down. "No problem, Mr. Eastwood. We were just following standard procedure." Standard procedures should include treating veterans with respect, not removing them for existing while homeless. As Clint escorted Michael toward the theater, the 300 reporters and photographers who had been waiting for the star's return began documenting what would become one of the most talked-about moments in premiere history. "Ladies and gentlemen," Clint announced to the assembled media, "I'd like you to meet Michael Thompson, a Vietnam veteran, and my guest for tonight's screening. The questions came immediately. Mr. Eastwood, why did you leave your interviews? Because I saw a veteran being mistreated, and that was more important than any interview. Are you making a political statement? I'm making a human statement. This man served his country, and he deserves to be treated with dignity. What about the premiere schedule? The premiere will happen when it happens. Taking care of people matters more than staying on schedule. Inside the theater, Clint made sure Michael was seated in the VIP section, introduced him to other guests as a real hero, and spent significant time talking with him about his military service and his current circumstances. Michael told me he had been struggling with homelessness since losing his job 2 years earlier. Clint revealed later, he was a decorated combat veteran who had simply fallen on hard times, and he was being treated like he was somehow less worthy of basic human respect. But Clint's support for Michael didn't end with the premiere invitation. Over the next several weeks, Clint quietly arranged for Michael to receive job placement assistance, temporary housing, and connections to veteran support services. Clint didn't want any publicity for what he did to help Michael, recalled social worker Diana Martinez, who worked with both men. He just wanted to make sure a veteran got the help he deserved. The impact of that October evening extended far beyond one man's life. The story of Clint's action spread throughout Hollywood and beyond, becoming a powerful example of how celebrities could use their influence for immediate practical good. What Clint did that night showed everyone what real star power looks like, observed entertainment journalist Army Archard. It's not about getting attention, it's about using attention to help people who need it. More importantly, the incident sparked conversations throughout the entertainment industry about how events handle homeless individuals and veterans. After the Thompson incident, major premieres began training security staff on how to interact with homeless individuals respectfully, explained event coordinator Patricia Williams. The story also became an inspiration for veteran advocacy groups. Clint's immediate action on behalf of Michael Thompson showed that supporting veterans isn't just about speeches and ceremonies. Noted Veterans of Foreign Wars spokesperson Robert Chen, sometimes it's about simple human dignity and respect in everyday situations. Michael Thompson himself became an advocate for homeless veterans, sharing his story at support groups and fundraising events. What Mr. Eastwood did changed my life. Michael reflected years later, not just because he helped me get back on my feet, but because he showed me that my service mattered to people who had never met me. He could have ignored what was happening and continued with his interviews. Instead, he chose to see a fellow human being who needed support. The media coverage of the incident was overwhelmingly positive, with news outlets praising Clint's priorities and character. In an industry often criticized for being out of touch with real people's problems, Clint Eastwood showed what authentic connection to community looks like, wrote Los Angeles Times columnist Kenneth Turan. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from other veterans, who saw Clint's action as recognition of their service and their worth as human beings. Clint didn't just help one veteran that night, explained Vietnam Veterans of America Representative James Walsh. He sent a message to every veteran that their service is valued and that they deserve to be treated with dignity, regardless of their current circumstances. Years later, when asked about why he had abandoned his premiere to help Michael Thompson, Clint's response revealed the values that had made him legendary, both on and off screen. Michael Thompson risked his life in Vietnam defending the freedoms that allowed me to have a successful career in America. The least I could do was risk a few minutes of interview time to defend his right to be treated with respect. Hollywood premieres happen all the time. Opportunities to stand up for veterans who are being mistreated are moments when you find out what kind of person you really are. I'd rather be remembered as someone who helped a veteran than as someone who gave great interviews about his own movies. October 1st, 1992, a movie star had to choose between career publicity and human decency. He chose decency without hesitation, left 300 reporters waiting, and reminded Hollywood what real strength looks like. Michael Thompson got more than a movie invitation that night. He got his dignity restored by someone who understood that fame without humanity is worthless. And Clint Eastwood proved once again that legends aren't made by what they do for cameras. They're made by what they do when they think no one important is watching, but someone important was watching that night. A veteran who needed to know that his service mattered, a security team that needed to learn about respect, an industry that needed to remember its values, and 300 reporters who got a story more important than any interview, the story of what happens when a real tough guy meets someone who needs protection. The tough guy protects them, every time, even when it means walking away from the spotlight to stand in solidarity with someone the world has forgotten. That's what legends do. They remember that fame is temporary, but character is permanent, and that the most important audience for your actions isn't the media, or the industry, or the fans. It's the person who needs help right now, even if helping them costs you something. Especially then, because that's when you find out who you really are. Clint Eastwood found out he was exactly who everyone hoped he was. A man who understood that real power means using your strength to protect people who can't protect themselves, even when those people are invisible to everyone else. Especially then. That's what made October 1st, 1992 legendary. Not the movie premiere. The man who walked away from it to do something more important, something that mattered more than any film ever could. Something that proved that the best roles Clint Eastwood ever played weren't scripted. They were just him being himself, when it counted most, for someone who needed it most. That's what legends are made of. Not scripts, not cameras, not premieres, just moments when you choose to be better than you have to be, for someone who deserves it, even when the world thinks they don't. Michael Thompson deserved it, and Clint Eastwood made sure he got it. That's the story. The rest is just Hollywood.